I personally feel like coal miners are some of the hardest working people in some of the most dangerous environments in the United States. And I'll say this, United States mining is far safer than any mining outside of the United States. And we have minerals here. We should be accessing those minerals here. And coal is a great source of energy.
And those coal miners are like a brotherhood. I mean, they live and die for each other. They would, really.
You can have all the science and data and technology and equipment in the world, and it's an unforgiving environment if it's the smallest thing goes wrong. So I give a lot of credit to the coal miners. I think people should appreciate and respect what they do. Can you talk about the Crandall Canyon disaster from you and your brother's standpoint?
It's crazy what those families went through. About in August of 2007 is when that accident happened, and 6 miners ultimately lost their lives. And then about a few days after that, they had another event and 3 actually rescuers that was trying to rescue the 6 miners that were trapped at the time. They didn't know. And I'll never forget how good the people were at Haycock, because we had people willing to give up their vacation time for my brother to take off, because he burned up all of his vacation and stuff. Here he was almost the end of his career, and then this happened to him. Unfortunate for all the miners, obviously, but it was a bad deal.
All right. Matt Morosco, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, pleasure's all mine, Jason.
I've been looking forward to talking mining and coal with you. So just to start off with, I like to do a little brain fire up, just some fun questions, get the brain going. And then after that, I'll give a brief summary of your personal, professional background so people have an idea about you. And then we'll just carry on a conversation about the topics we love.
Sounds good.
All right, I'm going to get started. Few questions. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Night owl.
Night owl?
I'm up.
Okay. What's your favorite comfort food?
Comfort food, pizza. I love pizza. Yeah.
Good man. You have a lot of classic cars in your treasure chest. What's your favorite classic car of all time, if you had to pick one?
It's got to be the 1957 Chevy Bel Air.
1950. Yeah. What color would it be?
It's red. So it's red. And I actually helped my grandpa and dad build that car from frame up restoration. So it's got some very sentimental value to me.
Special place in your heart? All right.
Absolutely.
What is your favorite TV show or movie?
TV show, probably Christine.
Christine. I'm not familiar. What is this?
You've never seen Christine?
No, I'm a TV movie buff guy. So
all right. Well, Christine was about a 1958 Plymouth that was going around tormenting, killing the people that went away, did it wrong.
Okay.
And the owner. So it's classic cars, my kind of tenure and stuff like that. So yeah, it's 1958 Plymouth Christine.
All right, I'll have to watch that.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. If you had to grade the Trump administration on their approach to mining and fossil fuels, what grade would you give them thus far?
This far, I got to give them probably a B+.
Okay.
But I know they're on the course to being an A+.
They're on the warpath.
Yeah.
All right. We'll get into that a little bit more in the interview. But first, I'd like to give everybody a brief bit of your background. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. You were born in Utah. You've been in the oil industry for over 30 years, during which time you received the following certifications. You got your CDL with hazmat endorsement. You got your OMA1, your oil monitoring analyst certification, and the coveted CLS, the certified lubricant specialist.
Yes, sir.
All right. You grew up working in a family business and you did just about everything. You wore all hats. You were a CDL driver. You worked warehouse, plant operations, fuel, lubricant sales, management. And then ultimately you guys sold the business in 2006.
Yes. Yeah.
And then
It was quite the process.
And then you went and joined kind of a regional jobber and you were with them until about 2013 until you cracked into big oil.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you served with Phillips 66 for about 10 years. And then you were a field service director and technical sales director, and you oversaw mining and power generation sectors.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then after that, you come full circle again and decide to join back up with a family jobber. You currently serve as the vice president of operations for ROC. And I would say most importantly, you're a family man and a recent grandfather.
Absolutely.
Congratulations on that.
Smile on my face. Yeah.
We share a lot of baby photos. Yeah, I got a daughter, you got a granddaughter about the same age. So yeah, we're
about 2 weeks apart.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
We'll get those little munchkins together one of these days.
Absolutely.
All right, well then that's we'll wrap the background there and tell us what it was like. What's it like growing up in Utah, and what was it like working in your family business?
So growing up in Utah, I was from a small rural town. It was Springland, where it's kind of close between Helper, not far from Helper, Salt, and Price, right in the middle. It was a small community. Basically, my great grandparents were actually the ones that established there, along with their relatives from Italy. So
what?
It's Marasco's been there a long time.
So your grandparents came from Italy and landed in Utah?
Great grandparents.
Great grandparents. What part of Italy?
San Giovanni.
Okay.
I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. I had some relatives that went back to Italy probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And the house where my great grandparents were at, but it's still standing. And there's actually Marasco still in that old house in Italy. So,
really?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
You guys got to take a pilgrimage one of these days and catch up with the Marascos.
Yeah.
My wife's got some family in Italy. I think they're actually going to be in Vegas for something here soon. But I think it's actually on my daughter's birthday. So I don't know if we'll be able to see them, but I know they keep in contact. And whenever they're in the States or some of her family's in Italy, they do their best to try to at least like keep those family ties together. Because it's cool. I mean, that's your heritage.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
was it
my heritage?
Was it your great grandparents that started the family business, or was it your grandfather?
My grandpa. Yeah,
how'd they get it started?
So my grandpa started. He was actually starting hauling coal. He used to haul coal for the mines there in Helper. It was a Dominion mine years ago, and then the mine they first introduced the longwall into that mine. Well, the longwall got ironbound. Ironbound means it's just stuck. They can't do anything with it. They can't move it. It just was caving in on it. So they ended up having to shut the mine down.
Okay.
And about in '84, that's when Dad and Grandpa, my grandpa bought the Chevron distributorship in Price, Utah from Keith Levitt.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's how they got started in the oil business. I was just a youngin' back then, like '84, and I was born in '77. So, but we were there every day.
I was about to say, yeah. I'm sure you were helping.
Yeah, we were. It was crazy.
With all the appropriate PPE on it, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Jean shorts, no t-shirt. Yeah. It was a different time.
Yeah.
Was it primarily coal hauling at the beginning? And then how did it develop over time, especially with that mine shutting down? How'd you guys kind of continue on for as long as you did?
That's a crazy story. So basically, the mine shut down. Dad and Grandpa had to gear up to the fuel business. They had to buy some tankers, secondhand tankers. They were learning the business as it was. Yeah. And we were growing. I mean, this took years, but the main business that was established was mining business that Keith Levitt had established. So we just took over the mining deliveries, the fuel deliveries, that kind of stuff. We converted actually some of the actual coal trucks that were used we converted it to a tank wagon. And 1976, Pete, me and that truck, we went millions of miles together. So hours, I should say.
I like it.
But yeah, it was interesting. Me and my brother, Mike, I remember Mark, he was still the youngin', but me and Mike, Dad, we only had like one tanker at the time. So Dad would go get 6,500 gallons of oil in the trailer. Well, we'd have to have that trailer unloaded over the weekend.
Yeah.
to have it so Dad can haul fuel during the week, the other part of the week.
So you'd offload, repack, flush.
We did
go get fuel, and then
buckets in a weekend. It was insane.
Yeah.
Like I said, we were just a young boy. You know, I remember my, friends always, hey man, why don't you come over and sleep over and stuff? And I was like, shit, we got to work. Can't.
You're like, I'd love to do a sleepover, but I'm repacking 6,500 gallons of bulk so that I could flush this trailer and get it back up with fuel.
It was crazy time, fun time though. I look back, me and Mike laugh all the time.
Mike's your brother?
Yeah, older brother Mike. Yeah, we look back at some of the things we did with Dad and Grandpa. Like, man, that was awesome.
Was Dad an easygoing guy or was he a tough guy? Because that generation.
That he was Italian. He was, but he actually had part Yugoslavian in him too. So we're more, me and my brother and Dad. My dad's dad was more of the full-blooded Italian.
Yep.
And then got a lot of Yugoslavian in us, bohunk kind of in their hot heads too. So no, Dad was a short Italian, hot-headed guy, and either loved you or he hated you, one of the two. And you knew, what side you were on.
And he wanted his boys to do it right, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's cool. So was it mostly geographically mining in Carbon County?
Oh yeah, Jason, there was, I bet when we were growing up, there was probably a dozen, 15 coal mines. Price back when I was growing up looks kind of like how the Elko
area
is now.
Yeah.
All the money.
That whole Carlin trim.
Happy, people making money, buying things, and now, with what's happened with the coal industry, it's kind of more depressed now, but there's hope,
Beautiful, clean coal.
Beautiful, clean coal.
We'll jump into that. So as you guys are kind of nearing 2006, what went into your decision-making about, selling the business?
Well, there's some things that was happening. We weren't really supposedly paying attention to the books and that kind of stuff. And we got in kind of deep with some customers, and my wife called me up one morning. I'll never forget it. She goes, your paycheck bounced. I'm like, what?
My family business paycheck bounced?
My family paycheck business bounced. And she goes, yeah. So, I called my old man and I said, or my mom, because, at the time, and she goes, Matt, that can't be true. Whatever. Just tell her to redeposit and stuff. Anyway, so we went on with that, and come find out, we just had so many bills. We had bills going.
Cash flow.
Yeah. And customers. And it was all handshake back in those days, like, hey, I'll pay you, Terry, we're good about it. We are. And
those weren't the net 10 EFT days. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Those days didn't even exist back then. But anyway, so, and Jason, take for instance, I'm like probably 20 years old at that time.
Yeah.
That's what finally I had to set my mom and dad down. And I said, this ain't working. Here's what we're doing. We're going to take over the business. We're going to make it work. And this is what I got to do to make it work. The computer system you have now, and the guy that's here day and night trying to get it to work, a doctor's computer system, trying to make it an oil company's computer system, it ain't going to work. So I told my dad, I got to buy a computer system for $13,000. He goes, you ain't going to do that. You're crazy. You're going to pay that much on computers? And I said, Dad, in 3 months, I'll pay for it, because the money you're paying your accountant to transfer the information, when all I can do is push a button, it'll pay for itself in 3 months.
Yep.
So I says, it's this way or the highway. I got to go find another job, or we got to find something else, because we ain't going to survive. And it wasn't easy. My old man was pretty, there's a lot of cussing involved in this conversation and everything else. But ultimately, that's when me and my older brother, Mike, at the time, Mark was still kind of young, and then he kind of built up in it too. But me and Mike basically had to run it. And Mike was hauling the fuel, keeping the fuel coming to the plant and doing the deliveries with the transport. And then I was actually running it with my mom, the office part.
Yeah.
Accounting, accounts receivable, accounts payable, everything. And preparing the tax reports in this new system. Plus, I was actually out there doing deliveries too. So I was doing the tank wagon deliveries and canning the oil in the warehouse. Little brother was helping a little bit back then, but it was tough. It really made me grow up fast.
Yeah.
It was a reality when that check bounced. I was like, oh shit, something got to change.
And that's the important part of the administrative side is like, we see it every day, and particularly you in the field more than me now. These guys work hard. You know, there's a lot of hard work that goes into making sure that your customers have a reliable energy solution and products to keep their equipment running smoothly. The worst thing you can do is go through all that hard work and not have your house in order on the back end so that the bills get out on time, you get paid on time so that you can replenish your cash, go purchase more inventory, keep your drivers paid, and just keep your customers happy. And if you don't take care of the administrative side, it can catch up with you.
Yeah. And then as we got going more, as me and my brothers took over, we actually, me and Mike were kind of excited because we were actually saving money to save up for a new truck.
Yeah.
And my dad caught wind that we ordered a new Peterbilt truck. He's like, "What the hell, you big shots thinking you're going to go, buy this truck? How the hell are you going to pay for it and everything?" And it was like, "See that? We've been saving, Dad." And we wrote a check for it. We paid cash for it.
Yeah.
That's how we did it.
That's awesome.
And, me and Mike were proud. That was probably the proudest moment of our time, actually buying a new semi. And
you're still in your early 20s at this time. Yeah, that's a big achievement.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I mean, again, those experiences in life that I've had, Jason, kind of has prepared me for my journey as I move on, in my life and stuff. So again, I was like, man, I wish my man would have done this with me, and Mom would have done this. My mom's our rock. She's awesome. But Dad, he wasn't a lover. He was, work
disciplinarian.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why it's important to have Mom and Dad in the home. David Ryan and I talked about, how important the nuclear family is. It's like together, it's a really powerful package, but one by itself, because sometimes, you need a disciplinarian, particularly for young boys. If they get out of hand, like they need their dad to come in the room occasionally and go, "You gonna talk to your mom like that again?" That ain't gonna happen. Yeah. So you guys end up, getting to making a decision to go through an exit in 2006. You joined now more of like a regional distributor. Did you get out of Carbon County and work with, different type of accounts as opposed to what you had done in the family business?
Yeah. So a lot of the family business decision and why we got out of it, Jason, was back in that time. It was in 04, 05-ish. I mean, we were super busy. We had the gas well going on in Carbon County and that, and doing a lot of fuel we were moving. For us, 12,000, 15,000 gallons of dyed diesel fuel a month was a lot of, or a day was a lot of fuel for us.
Full load a day.
Well, back then, there was a fuel shortage. So, and we didn't have any branded gallons. So we were buying fuel from our competition and stuff like that across the street. And we can't operate this way. We can't depend on, even though he was a great guy and helped us through it.
Yeah.
It's like, ultimately, you can't do that. And that's when, I said, guys, it's just time. We're not going to survive if we're not a bigger nugget in the industry. And Dad didn't ever want to grow. He didn't want to expand the business. He was comfortable with what we had, and we had opportunities too, but it wasn't something he didn't want to take on.
And that's not rare, because as you grow, it's like, it's more capital intensive. Your insurance rates go up, your risk goes up. So, some people are comfortable like, hey, Carbon County, this is our bread and butter. We're really good at mining. Stick to what we do.
Yeah.
Problem with that is, your competitors get better. Their rates, their purchasing power, everything like that starts to work against you. And if you're relying on one of those competitors for your foundation, sooner or later, management can change. Their strategy can change, and it creates now a rocky foundation for this, family jobbership. So were you happy when you guys exited and you landed in a new role?
Yeah, we sold to a good company, Haycock Petroleum. They were based out of Las Vegas at the time.
I got their book from Peter Kruger.
Oh, really?
Yeah, their family wrote a book. The Haycock family did. Really cool.
Claire and John, great people. I never got to meet Claire, but John.
I don't know him personally, but I've been reading through the book. Peter provided it to me, which was great because I just love to read about the history, and they seem like they did things right.
Yeah, I'll never forget it when we actually found out we were actually going through the buyout. The salesman I knew at the time, he called me up. He goes, "Hey, got some news for you." I said, "Please tell me it's good news." He goes, "The board approved you." And I was loading a truck, heading out to go, haul a load of fuel that day. And it was good. It was, you could tell my dad was sad, in a way. And we all were really, it's like, we don't want to sell, but we don't. But, it was a good choice. It was, I look back now And yeah, it's, collections, everything else, all the headaches we have, but 1,000 times more, but thankfully we got some good customers and good, good people working in the background, keeping things going.
Buyouts are emotional on both sides of it, particularly for the seller, because it's like, you have decades or generations worth of a family business that you're about to divest. It's not like you don't get anything for it. You get, a wheelbarrow of money, but there's an emotional connection to that. It could even be nostalgic. And, and on the buyer side, you have to take that into consideration because the deal math can make sense, right? Your project timeline, closing, all that, everything can be dialed in. But like, if you don't connect on the emotional piece, like that can blow up a deal just as well as anything else can.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
Yeah. And I think it gives you more empathy too, because our nature, our industry's a mature industry, which means there's consolidation. We're not immune to it. We've done some deals and we do try to have empathy for the other side, because it is a highly emotional period of time. So congrats to you for getting through that.
Yeah.
So you're with your regional jobbership. What was that tenure like and kind of what led to you flirting with the idea of going and joining big oil?
Again, it's a crazy world and crazy story. It's a small world actually. So basically I was doing the manager position at the bulk plant we sold. And then I was like, I got to find something else. And I love sales.
Yeah.
I love doing sales. I love cold calling. I love to just, go talk with people and that. And so I went on the road selling and went to the oil rig, drill rigs in Vernal, that area, and was, thankfully pretty good. And a lot of people gave me a good chance, believed in me, and we made that happen. And, so I did that for a while. And then all through that, we had a relationship. We were delivering, Haycock was delivering product for the Phillips. Phillips had national accounts for some of the mines down there.
Okay. So Haycock was a distributor for Phillips on the lubricant side?
Yeah.
Got it.
And so we were doing that, and the field rep would like come talk to me. I'm like, man, it'd be a dream. It's a dream. It'd be a dream to work for Big Oil. When I was a young man and I see the Chevron rep come into my dad's desk and they had their name on their card, I was like, man, one day my name will be on Big Oil's card, and that was a dream.
Yeah.
So people out there, keep your dreams alive because you never know what's going to happen. But it just crazy. Well, and then anyway, so Todd, he was the field rep there at the time and hung out with him a lot. And Jim Giagani.
I've heard the name.
Yeah.
It's a legend.
Jim Giagani he was from Price in a way. I mean, he from Raton, New Mexico, but moved there in Price and Fairmont Supply. He ran the Fairmont Supply down in Price. Well, he knew my grandpa when my grandpa was in the coal business, go down there and buy tires and stuff like that. And so Jim, he ended up being the director of mining for Phillips 66. And so one thing led to another. I went for an interview and there I was in Big Oil's office doing an interview. And
they take you out to Houston?
Yeah, I flew to Houston. Yeah.
Same building?
Same building.
It's a nice building.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, it was the
predecessor. Yeah. This new one.
It was the old building. But, and I've had 3 dreams in life. I've had, one dream was basically the one where I see myself in, in a suit and tie and looking down in a city. And it's like, man, this is actually reality.
Yeah.
And it was just so crazy how it happened. And I loved it. And they hired me. And
then you were the field service director. So were you over a particular part of the United States? And was it mining and power generation at that time, or was it something before that?
So it was. So I got hired on the mining segment, and basically they had the customers in Price, and back then they had Pacific Corp, all the power plants, the coal mines and stuff. So it was practically in my backyard where the customer base was.
Yeah, you're like, I know these guys. Yeah.
And,
went to school with that guy. Yeah.
And actually, my wife, if you'll listen to this, I'm sure. But I told her that, Jim, I was like, how's that Salt Lake move going for you? Because when I took that job at Phillips, part of the stipulation was I had to move to
Salt Lake City.
And he goes, how's that Salt Lake move going for you? I go, I'm loving it. I says, but my wife, she like trying to get used to it and stuff. And he goes, shit, we probably could have made that job work in Price. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell my wife that. I ended up confessing, telling her that. And she goes, it is what it is.
You guys are still in Salt Lake?
Yeah. Yeah. Still in Salt Lake.
So she warmed up to it?
She has. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're only what, about 120 miles away from Price, and you got family down there, so she can go down on the weekends and see him.
Yeah.
You guys can still be involved. It's not like they're all the way across the United States. That's good.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, and so basically that's where I was. I was based in Salt Lake. I handled the Rio Tinto contract and was kind of the field service rep at the times, what they still call FSR, and field service rep, and doing like hands on with the customer, trying to help them with ways of contamination control, training, that kind of stuff, just being the support there on the ground. And then that's when, about in October of 2019, is when I got promoted to a field service director, where that's actually the account rep. So control the pricing and contracts, all that
bids
stuff.
When they go out to bid.
Yeah.
And so you're not only working on that, but you're still getting out in the field, working relationships with the customers. So you still have to be very savvy on, not only, OSHA, but particularly MSHA regulations. You're focusing on quality control for the products that you're bringing in, but you're also giving them advice on like equipment reliability.
Yeah.
Right. Like I can give you,
range,
I can give you the best, products in the world, and I can, adhere to the safety regulations, of whatever site we're on. But if what you're doing with the equipment isn't, best practice, all that is a moot point. Yeah. So you're kind of working on those pillars with them to make sure that they're getting the longevity out of those products that you're providing.
Yeah. Yeah. And extending the product range, kidney loop and filtration projects we were involved in. Yeah. It's kind of separated what Phillips was like more of a partnership than a, just, hey, here's your oil, have a good day.
That's what I see.
Really involved and trained in the everyday operations.
Yeah. I think
still this day, that's their,
bread and butter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Phillips does a particularly good job on those big accounts, where they have a distributor supporting them on the logistics side. For instance, shout out to Art Nichols, P66. Right. Somebody from one of the mines, not Art. It's not Art patting himself on the back here. This is an outside party that said, I checked Art's badge swipes in and out of the mine, and he's got more badge swipes than some of the people that work there full time. Yeah. That's how often he's out there. And I'm not saying babysitting, but making sure that they're getting the value, for the, tremendous amount of product that they're putting into their equipment.
Yeah, and mining customers, I'm not going to say they're needy, but they are needy. But it's that need is a different than I just need something. It's like you're there to be their problem solver. I don't care if it's they can't find, I don't know, floor dry. And hey,
pick up that phone.
Got floor dry. How much you want? It's that taking those problems away so they can move on to bigger and better, keeping the mine operating and profitable and stuff. So
yeah, and I think there has to be like intentionality in the company to where you build flexibility in. Like we've done a good job, I think, about that regionally. And it's simple things that you can do to where that if you do get that call, you have built-in flexibility to where you can put on the cape and save the day. Now, granted, if it happens every day, every hour, that's a problem. It's like, hey, we're not prioritizing, we're not organized, or else we wouldn't have so many 911s. But when the occasional 911 comes up, you want to be the guy to pick up the phone and take care of them. And we've had that happen, and it's really, unfortunately, I think it puts a stain on whoever's taking care of them in the moment, but it builds some credibility that you're going to be there to take care of them. And that's something that we try to do. I think Phillips 66 does a really good job of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't let them down and answer the phone when they call. That's the most important thing.
So we talked about coal particularly, and that's the subject that I want to dive into a little bit. I personally feel like coal miners are some of the hardest working people in some of the most dangerous environments in the United States. And I'll say this, United States mining is far safer than any mining outside of the United States. And we have minerals here. We should be accessing those minerals here. And coal is a great source of energy. So I'd love to see this uptick. Can you talk about some of the coal operations that you're familiar with in your neck of the woods and what you love about working with those guys? Because it's important.
Jason, you hit the nail right on the head. There's certain type of individual that's a coal miner. And those coal miners are like a brotherhood. I mean, they live and die for each other. They would really. I mean, it's and picture yourself going into a dark hole, and then
Literally and figuratively.
and then you're on night shift, and then you come out in the day, or you're on night. It's just like you're in dark all the time. It's crazy. And I give a lot of credit to miners. I think, and even surface miners for that matter. It's a different breed.
Can you explain the difference between surface mining and underground mining for people that aren't familiar with it?
Yeah, so surface mining is basically what it says. Surface mining, you're stripping the overburden on the surface. You don't. There's depths and stuff that you have to get in, that you can get into, but ultimately you have to go underground if you have so much overburdening that. But basically, surface is surface mining. So you got a lot of D9 dozers, the scrapers, road graders, that kind of stuff. And then haul trucks, those big haul trucks that see big a house basically.
Yeah.
And then you go to the underground mine, and it's all tunneling. It's really tunneling. And if you look at the map of a mine, it's like a grid. It's a crazy. It's so impressive what they can do, and the technology that's come a long ways for underground mining. But
impressive and dangerous. I mean, those guys are working. I know you and I kind of share the same sentiment. I'm happy to go on a tour of an underground mine, but when we were invited last time, and we've been to a lot, you've been to a lot of mine site. I've been to a fair amount of mine site myself. We got invited to one that we take care of in Utah, and I think the CEO was like, our CFO asked him, how far down do you go? And he was like, it's not really linear. He's like, but from like point of origin to where you're going, he's like, it's about a 15-mile ride before you get to where, we would start our tour.
Yeah, that's no kidding.
And we all kind of looked at each other and said, yeah, I don't know about that one. Be happy to go to like an open pit mine or a surface mine, but that's a long way down.
It is.
And I think that's a good segue because, your brother's family, actually went through unfortunately a disaster at a mine. Can you talk about the Crandall Canyon disaster from you and your brother's standpoint?
Yeah, so it's crazy what those families went through, and I'll just get into it. But about in August of 2007 is when that accident happened, and 6 miners both lost their lives. And then about a few days after that, they had another event and 3 actually rescuers that was trying to rescue the 6 miners that were trapped at the time. They didn't know.
And that was MSHA rescuers that went in?
A couple of MSHA rescuers, and I believe one of the mine rescue team was there too. But there was a team of them on that, but unfortunately 3 rescuers lost their lives. But yeah, when it happened, my brother, we were with Haycock and Jardine at the time, just barely sold our business, 2006 in July. And this happened in August of 2007. And, Mike, he had to take some time off. And I'll never forget how good the people were at Haycock, because we had people willing to give up their vacation time for my brother to take off, because he burned up all his vacation and stuff. And
one of the trapped miners was your brother's father-in-law.
Yeah.
So it was his wife's father that was stuck in the mine. And according to what I know, they felt like there was possibility that they were still alive, and they kind of strung the families along with this rescue effort and may have not been forthright with them about what the conditions were like in the mine.
Yeah, I mean, there's investigations out there, and what they found ultimately, they shouldn't have been mining where they were mining. Ultimately,
were they stripping columns?
They were actually, it was they were taking more of they call them pillars, cribs, and they were taking a little bit more than they probably should have.
And the pillar is a piece of coal.
But pillars, think of a pillar, it's like 100-foot square chunk of coal that you have to leave in as you're mining
to keep
keep the support of the mountain. And again, you're
miles underground. Yeah.
But yeah, and Mike, they'd have those press conferences and that, and like, oh, we thought we heard some pounding, like some steel pounding, people pounding on the pipes, so there's hope. And all the time during that, Jason, we had a drilling rig company that was actually drilling holes. They were trying to get drilling holes from the surface, and we were actually delivering the fuel to those drill rigs.
Yeah.
And then Mike was off work all the time, but I seen that family go through a roller coaster of emotions. Like, they had hope, like, yeah, maybe there is hope for, us to see our family members again. And all the while, meanwhile, there was all this drilling activity and stuff. I mean, I think the work they were trying to do to get to those people were, as
Commendable.
capable
Yeah.
as they could, with what they were dealt with.
And they got MSHA in there as well.
Yeah,
so.
MSHA was there all the time, approving their plan and that. But yeah, it just actually my brother, Governor Huntsman came down at the time. They were doing fundraisers and just trying to keep the family's spirits held high, for hope. And ultimately, we all know what
yeah. I think. I mean, generally speaking, when they're stripping those pillars, I believe there was a kind of a seismic event underground after the fact. With all the data and science that came back, it was like, hey, the air conditions and everything like that. Most likely, they weren't surviving underground for as long as they thought. And then they sent the rescuers in. There was another seismic activity. That's how the rescuers ended up getting trapped in there. So they never recovered the bodies.
No, and
the bodies are still in the mountain.
Bodies are still in the mountain. And what's sad about my brother's father-in-law, such a great guy, and so what a peach to be around and stuff. And he was 3 months away from retiring. That's what else is sad. So here he was almost the end of his career, and then this happened to him. Unfortunate for all the miners, obviously, but it was a bad deal.
Yeah, I mean it's an absolute tragedy, and I think I went up there with your brother when I was in Utah. We went up there and actually got to the memorial right outside where the opening is, and they had all the gravestones, and it's a moment for reflection, and I think appreciation, because it's like there are still coal miners today. They are still working in those same conditions, hopefully safer. But accidents happen, seismic events happen. You can have all the science and data and technology and equipment in the world, and it's an unforgiving environment if the smallest thing goes wrong. So I give a lot of credit to the coal miners. I think people should appreciate and respect what they do, and hopefully we'll have a new golden era of coal mining in the United States. I think that we do it cleaner, we do it better. We have a lot of those natural resources there, so we should be getting after it and supporting the coal mining community.
Absolutely.
Happy to do it. One hydraulic oil pail at a time. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Since we're talking about mining, can you explain how strict it is with MSHA regulations? For a jobber out there that maybe wants to diversify, get onto a mine site and start supplying them, what are some of the things that they should really think about before they enter those gates?
Well, it kind of relates to, what we ended up with when we had actually the conversion of when you guys got on board with Phillips and that, doing service in the mines there, and another jobber there in Salt Lake that's part of that. When we brought them on, they showed up to the mine basically in tennis shoes and shorts. Actually, before they got to the mine, because I had to stop, and I had to give them my wheel chocks. They had wheel chocks. So that awareness, just by dealing with those mines and going through the MSHA training, would make you have that awareness. But we didn't even get to that step yet. So it just puts you in perspective that no, this is no joke. You're around heavy equipment all the time. It's heavily regulated. Especially in the coal mine. The coal mines are so regulated, and they get. I mean, if they don't have toilet paper on the little spools, they get written up for like a citation and stuff like that. I mean, it's
why. What could possibly go wrong if you don't have toilet paper on a spool?
I don't know. I don't make the rules, but I'm saying that's the scrutiny these coal mines go through, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
Again,
is the fear that like there's some sort of ignition source underground, and if a fire starts, you essentially can't put the fire out because now you have another fuel source in a mountain.
Yeah, I mean that's what the difference is. So you got the coal that's combustible.
Yeah,
that's why you got to have metal containers. Everything's got to be in metal,
not plastic.
No plastic at all. And then if you go to like a hard rock mine, underground mine, like a gold mine, trona mine, etc., they don't have
all those regs,
all the regs of the coal mines. In fact, I had a guy that used to work in the coal mines forever, and he actually went to a trona mine up in Green River, Wyoming, near that area. And he says, "Man, if I'd have known regulations that I was stuck with in a coal mine versus a hard rock mine, And again, I think it has to do, Jason, with the combustibility. More dangerous.
Yeah, salt mine's not going to just go up in flames, whereas a coal mine,
Yeah, and see, in the coal mine, when you go in there, it's like covered with rock dust and everything. It's not, you don't just see the coal actually, unless you're on the long wall or
Yeah.
the continuous mine, watching it mine away. But in a hard rock mine, obviously, you're not worried about too much of that stuff.
So your regs go from this thick to this thick.
Yeah.
I mean, still a lot of regs, just nowhere near as underground coal mine. Yeah, we definitely see that servicing different types of mine. There are levels of scrutiny that you have to go through, and you need to be aware of like, hey, are we servicing underground coal, or are we servicing a salt mine over here in Corona, California?
Yeah.
Different ball game, totally.
But still, they're all regulated by MSHA.
Yep.
And it's even an open gravel pit, it's regulated by MSHA. So that's why we have all our drivers certified in MSHA just to keep that alertness level up.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you could be doing a convenience store and branded gasoline delivery one day, and you could be going on a mine site the next day. Yeah. Not saying you shouldn't be safe when you're dropping fuel at a convenience store, but it is a different ball game when you go through a mine site. They're on you. Not only the mine is on you with ABETA, ISN, and all their metrics to make sure you're safe as a contractor to come on site, but if MSHA shows up, anything you do wrong is a black eye to the mine. Yeah. So they certainly don't want contractors there that aren't, dotting their I's and crossing their T's.
Yeah. Yeah. If you get a citation as a vendor on a mine site, not good.
My grandfather, Dan McGrew, joined the Merchant Marines on October 4th, 1943 at the age of 17. On March 1st, 1946, the vessel broke in half off of Attic, Alaska. It broke at the number 5 tank, the exact craft we had in Australia in 1943. My grandfather was stuck for 5 days on a ship,
just waiting,
hoping and waiting that someone would show up. Luckily, nobody died from this thing cracking in half. I really grew as a person being a litigator. I got very, very comfortable and good at doing cross-examinations and depositions. The first year is definitely the hardest because you haven't studied the law yet and you're just being thrown into this, and it's different than you think it's going to be. It's always fun to go into a deposition and have a gotcha moment. I had experiences where I've been deposing a doctor, and then we finished the deposition and claims counsel called me and said, okay, let's settle now. I don't want to go through anymore. If you have policies in place, gotta call them. I think that's one of the biggest things that they're going after right now when they're going for those nuclear verdicts is their safety culture is just an illusion.
Yeah,
that's what they want to say. When we want to show, no, that's not true. We take it seriously. This is what we do.
It's a reality. It's enforced. It's embedded in our culture. And unfortunately, this event happened. We're going to try to do right by it. But all the research that you're going to see shows that this is truly a safe culture.
Not good. And it's on your DOT license too. So like you can make a mistake in, this city, this county, this state, and that, that mistake is going to be a black eye to your entire DOT number and your company as a whole. So like it's not about like, hey, we've got this crew of killers in Elko and they do a really good job and everybody else slacks off over here. We can't have that. Like the standard has to be set across the board if anybody's going to be going on a mine site because we take it seriously.
Well, we share resources too. I mean, that guy that's sick, and you guys had to go through that with the plan and the Phillips when you had
Phillips conversion, even COVID. Because you never know. Like somebody could just get sick and be out for 6 weeks. Yeah. What are we going to do? That was our main flatbed driver.
Yeah,
like you got to have contingencies, and you got to have contingencies and contingencies. Because the mine's like, I don't care that guy's sick. I'm not shutting production down. Right. You need to get your stuff together. Yeah. No, I'm very proud to work with the mining industry. And very proud to work with Cole. Happy that you're on board because I think you bring a level of expertise that we didn't have, and it's fun to watch you guys out there doing your thing.
Yeah, I got an awesome crew, and our new safety director we just hired. He comes with a wealth of knowledge and an MSHA background, helping us with our safety program. And him and Derek, watching those two guys work each other's magic and stuff. It's great.
They're awesome. I definitely want to get those guys on there if they're willing and able. That's up to them. But there's a lot to be said for I think both of our EHS guys for both regions, they really live it. And unfortunately, they both have had to deal with losing a child where safety was related in the accident. And so when they go out there and they show it they're not pointing their finger and yelling at people just because this is the rule, this is the reg. Yeah. They've lived it, so there's empathy there. They're not just out there yelling at people, telling them the proper way to do things. They're saying like, hey, here are the results of what can go wrong if you don't do your job safely. Like at the end of the day, like we want to have a successful, organization. We want to take care of our customers, but the most important thing is you need to get home to your family at night.
Yeah.
Because when that doesn't happen, I mean, it shatters families, it shatters communities, it shatters companies. It's it's one of those things that you hope you get through your entire career without ever having to deal with.
Yeah. That's something that we preach a lot in our safety meetings is like, please guys, don't make us be the ones that need to call your family, because you're not coming home. It's we ingrain and train that in their heads, and
And I think we do a good job of searching through the news outlets, MSHA, different regulators, so that when there is a catastrophe that may not have represented us, we weren't involved in it, or our customer base wasn't involved in it. We're like, hey, look at this tanker truck that exploded on the side of the highway in Philadelphia. Like that's horrible. That's a horrible day for that driver, for that company, for that community. So what can we learn from that mistake? Even though it's not our mistake, that can happen any day.
Yeah. And in a way, it's our competition, but at the end of the day, it's a part of us, right?
It's our industry.
We're all in this business together, so it's reflected on all of us, what we do and what they do, and that's
Yeah, we're all even if it is a competitor of ours, we don't relish in that. It's a sad day for them, a sad day for the family involved, sad day for the community if there's a fire, environmental contamination, God forbid somebody gets hurt. Nobody in the industry relishes that. I don't care who you are. And if you do, you're not going to make it very long in the industry, because you want the industry to do well, because at the end of the day, it's important.
Yeah.
It's important for our modern way of life. All right. So I want to talk a little bit more about, since we were talking about company, culture. How important is it for a family jobber to have, I would say, a unique culture? You can work for big oil and you can have 20,000 employees. What would, and that could be your dream, right? What would go into moving, horizontally back into a family jobbership? Like what cultural elements exist with a family business that may not exist with a big enterprise?
You just said the word family. It's you're a number in a bigger company, I feel, and it's where Rebel is so strong in the family. I mean, it's part of our mission statement. It's the first sentence.
Yeah.
First few words of our mission statement.
It's support our families.
Yeah, you have to support the families, and without the family support of, even my family supporting me, and I'm away in that. It's it's and the drivers out there making it, ours day to day, but it's so important to be a family-oriented company, and the commitment of yourself. And I know the owners, they never want that to go away ever, no matter how big they get. It'll be hard to manage that way, but you cannot lose that luster.
No,
it's a rarity. I mean, you see these big conglomerates gobble up these family companies, and
changes culture.
Yeah, it does. It really does, and you have to keep that. Like tomorrow, you got the
bring your kids to work
day. I mean, you don't see that too much in bigger companies. So.
No. And unfortunately, I wish we could extend it to like every one of our facilities. But the reality is you can't have a 3-year-old running through a fuel terminal. So the guys are like, how come we can't get, it's like, well, we could do other things to where we have, like truck driver awareness week, have a tractor out there, bring the kids out. But it is fun to bring them here. I think it's good for your kids to, at least get like little seeds planted of how the world really works.
Yeah.
I think people take energy for granted. They take equipment running smoothly for granted. It's like, well, what products do you think allow that to happen? Yeah. It doesn't just run endlessly. Right. It takes maintenance. It takes care. It takes an energy source. And that's what we do. Every location that we have, we support our community.
Take our drivers, for example. I mean, I was a driver, and our drivers are our best salespeople out there. Because a salesman could go work his butt off on that particular opportunity, and one bad hour with the driver could ruin the whole work of what that salesman tried to accomplish, especially on a larger customer that's taken years. Sometimes these opportunities take years to fester in that.
Oh yeah,
our drivers are so important to our operation, and I preach it all the time when I'm around drivers.
Every like I constantly say business is a team sport, because it really is. There are some companies like a law firm, service-based companies where that culture doesn't really exist. It's very competitive, and a lot of people with like similar roles that are trying to outshine each other. It's not how it is here. You have drivers that are making the deliveries, the backbone of the operation, but you have sales guys that may have worked years to get that opportunity, and they want to make sure that delivery goes well.
Yeah.
Well, there's no delivery to be had if your supply chain team isn't making sure the inventory is there to take care of your customers. And then you've got the administrative side, you got the safety side. So if all of those are working in conjunction with each other, like a Swiss watch, we're all rowing in the same direction, like you get really amazing results. But it requires, to your point, and you hammer this home, I feel like on a weekly basis, communication, communication, communication. Yeah. And it's tough because you don't want to over communicate. You want to have meetings after meetings, meetings about meetings. So you try to do it in a fashion to where it's like, hey, let's get the biggest bang for our buck, where we can have these cross-departmental meetings to make sure every aspect of this delivery process is going well.
You can have meetings, but have meaningful meetings.
Correct.
And then go into your meeting knowing what you want to accomplish ahead of time, right? Don't just have a meeting just to have a meeting. I mean, we're all.
And I've seen that with big organizations in particular, where it's just one meeting after the next. And it's like, okay, how do I have time to execute the action items that we just discussed in this meeting if I'm just rolling from meeting to meeting to meeting? And then like, hey, next week we need updates. I need time, So I appreciate you actually doing that, because you're like, hey, do we need to really have 2 separate meetings? Yeah. How about we just extend this one 15 to 20 minutes to touch on these topics and then get back to the work that needed to be done? Because we can't take care of our customers if we're all just sitting behind the computer and on our phones. We actually got to get out there and do it.
Yeah, I'm a hands-on guy. I don't like even the office. I'm here in the office today, and it's like I want to go to my operation.
Your real office is your AT4.
Yeah. Pickup.
Yeah, Matt's, people are like, "What? I haven't seen Matt in his office." I'm like, "He's in his office.
Yeah,
he's just not in that office.
Yeah,
he's in his primary office. Yeah, he's out there. We're making it happen, and we appreciate that, because there's times when the rest of the team can't get out in the field, and it certainly makes me sleep better at night knowing that you, Jared, Charlie, Joe, Derek, Chris, you guys are out there with the managers, the drivers, taking care of them so they can take care of the customers.
Yeah, I couldn't ask for a better team. I mean, them guys are solid, every one of them.
We got a bunch of studs, and over time we'll get them on here to talk about their role, and it's not just about our team as much as it is like the greater industry. So there's some other people that we'd love to discuss with. But before we wrap, we got to take a fun trip to Ireland.
Yes.
What surprised you about Barry? Northern Ireland. It's part of the UK, loyal to the crown. We spent some time up in Belfast in Northern Ireland. What surprised you about it, if anything?
What surprised me, well, things that I noticed that I would have noticed is they don't have diesel exhaust fluid up there.
Yeah.
They got a lot of diesel vehicles, but no diesel exhaust fluid. He's like, what's that? I asked Barry, I go, where's your diesel exhaust fluid nozzles and dispensers? What the hell is that? We don't have that. And I'm like, here we are sacrificing our emissions and everything else.
Yeah, our NOx emissions.
Our so-called partners out there don't even have diesel exhaust fluid trying to clean up, So anyway,
I noticed
that's what I noticed the most.
And most of the cars are diesel.
Yeah.
And when I was filling up, so I go in, I don't know, get my jerky and drink or whatever, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go, fill up on pump 7. The guy's like, okay, you just go pump. I'm like, yeah, but I need to pay you. Yeah. He goes, no, you pump first and then you come and pay. I was like, man, you guys are very trustworthy out here. Like, what's to stop somebody from just filling up the tank and driving on? I mean, nobody does that. Yeah. I'm like, well, good for you.
Yeah, just different culture. It was a beautiful country.
Beautiful country, a lot of historical division between the Protestants and the Catholics. Yeah. I mean, that was wild, going through the Peace Wall and seeing the 2 neighborhoods.
It was interesting, and seeing that fighting that was going on. I don't know, anyway.
Still
politics and religion,
Yeah, I mean, it's still it's fascinating. I think Americans unfortunately glamorize it. I've spent a lot of time over there with Barry, a personal friend of mine, and also worked in the oil industry, a guy that I'd love to get on here because he's got some crazy stories.
That'd be awesome.
Dealing with the IRA and some black market oil stuff that was going on that ultimately I think led him to kind of leave the business. But, he said that, he goes, Americans glamorize the troubles of Belfast. He goes, it was nothing glamorous about it. He's like, growing up as a young kid, my mother was a bookkeeper that worked for the military. She had to go to work in the boot, in the trunk of the car, because at the time they were kidnapping people. and sending them into military bases and, setting off bombs. It was a crazy
It really
time.
wasn't too long ago when it all ceased.
70s to the 90s. I mean, trust me, the Irish people have been in battle for a very long time. They've been colonized. There's plenty that you can read about it. Things are settled down now. Like you can go to the Belfast City Hall, beautiful building that you can walk up to. Barry said when he was a kid, it was military checkpoints. With the round gates and everything like that. He's like, there was nobody that was getting next to Belfast City Hall because they didn't know if somebody had a bomb or some sort of terrorist episode, whether it was on one side or the other. There was a lot of bad things going on, but beautiful country. I had a blast hanging out with you guys there.
Didn't meet one bad person that wasn't happy or enjoyed their job, or even the driver that took us around on that tour, he was very informative, and got to see that jail and
the crumb.
That was impressive.
I wouldn't want to be in the crumb.
No,
you're not getting out of the crumb, and it's cold and wet and a lot of concrete and bars. When I talk about Ireland, I'm like, it's the people, it's the culture, it's the history that keeps you coming back. I don't think the food is particularly great unless you go to like really nice restaurants. You get sick of fish and chips after a while. It's great potatoes, great lamb. Hopefully we'll take another trip maybe to your neck of the woods here in the near future. And the Trump administration is moving at rapid speed. I don't think they get enough credit for how quickly they're working. It's all relative, right? Like if you look at past administrations and cabinets, just the rapid pace that they're pushing things through, in my opinion, the majority of which is pushing the country in the right direction.
All it is, Jason, it's a proven good energy source. And instead of these damn regulators breaking the coal companies, why don't they put that money to use, like give these universities a big incentive to help with their emissions and stuff like that,
And they have
emissions and some rewards and stuff like that.
That's the thing is I feel like the coal industry doesn't get enough credit for what we do to clean up coal. If you look at our production here in the United States, some of the things that we do to protect air, protect water. I was just down in Coronado. Here's an anecdote, right? The Tijuana River has been just unloading a ton of not only toxic chemicals, waste, sewage, just gross stuff going into the Pacific Ocean. It's right on the border of San Diego. So you have all the businesses in Imperial Beach, which is a great part right there right on the Mexican border. Their businesses are going down because guess what? People don't want to go out to the beach when you can't even go in the water and the smell is horrible and you can see foam coming up. And then, you take that north a little bit and you have literally some of our nation's most elite warriors, the SEALs, training right there in Coronado. They're getting sick. And we have all these environmentalists that are freaking out. It's like, nobody's done anything about the Tijuana River.
No.
No one. You got businesses that are plummeting. The military's being affected. It's, in my opinion, probably a top 10 beach in the United States, one of the most beautiful ones, patriotic, like a military town. You can't go anywhere without seeing an American flag. It's somewhere where I feel like every American should take their family. And you don't want to go there because Mexico is just spewing toxic waste into the Pacific Ocean. Finally, you've got somebody from the EPA, Lee Zeldin. He was down there on Tuesday, was saying like, we need to discuss infrastructure that Mexico needs so that they can process this contaminated water. And we need to put some checks and measures in place to make sure that our military, our SEALs are taken care of, the business community in Imperial Beach is taken care of, and the families that live in Coronado can enjoy one of the most beautiful beaches in the United States. Like that's caring about the water. That's caring about the environment, the ecosystem that's in the Pacific Ocean. And there are many ways to care about the environment without chopping the legs out of the coal industry or the fossil fuel industry. Like you can produce reliable energy and you can do it probably cleaner than anywhere else in the world. But stop fooling yourselves into thinking that there's this, this net zero world.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. But not affordable, but not reliable.
You got somebody in the White House that is an everyday common sense guy.
Yeah.
And that's why we have so much hope for Trump, is because he is just an everyday guy. He gets reality. He wants to take care. He breathes the clean air, the drinks the water that we all enjoy, It's the last thing he wants to have happen,
He's got kids. He's got grandkids, right? And that means that like you're invested in the future of the United States. It's all these people that like don't have kids or they're just following the mainstream narrative, and I don't begrudge them because like you are the information that you intake, but just take a moment to say like, is it possible that whatever I listened to, whatever I watched, whatever I observed may have been biased? And if it is, like maybe educate yourself on like, some alternative information. Yeah.
That's the problem. Nobody has open minds. They're zoned, in the zone. And
Well, look at Europe.
don't say that,
And what they're
this
doing
guy,
with their energy approach. I mean, it's suicide. Hey, let's turn off, nuclear reactors.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of our coal mines. Okay. What is your energy source, right? And like keep
Windows.
great if wind's working.
If the wind turns.
And I've been to Germany. I studied, at the ports of Hamburg. Like not the sunniest country in the world. Neither is the UK. So some of this stuff doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And it also you have to take into consideration like what is unique to your country. What natural resources do you have?
Yeah.
What do your allies look like?
Right.
Because if you're relying on like world peace so that your import-export, process, is stable, that's a gamble. I mean,
Isn't it CO2 what the plants breathe too in the
It
nuclear
is.
option? So
it is, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, there's a greening of the
go back
earth.
to basics, and learn that stuff. Maybe you'll learn these people that are against all these energy, fossil fuel energies, Go read what reality is and get back to me on that.
There's a lot smarter people than me that could talk on this subject,
Me
but
too.
there's an astrophysicist that actually hypothesized that global temperature has more relation to Earth and the sun than it has anything to do with what we do or
Yeah.
post-industrial revolution.
One volcano eruption spews more eruptions than man would ever do in his ever existence.
Yeah, and you can actually prove that.
Torque the volcano so it don't explode. Like see that happen.
There are things that are beyond our power.
Again, it's these people are so without reality. It's the realm of things. What real life stuff is, they're so out of touch, but we got to educate them.
Correct.
So we got to educate them. We got to have good. Don't fly off the handle. We got to have okay. Let's hear your story. Why do you think this?
Arguing with someone, hitting him over the head with a tack hammer, calling him a moron, that doesn't persuade people.
Don't.
So like if you can have a conversation and your goal is to like, hey, I just want to plant a few seeds to help persuade you that maybe there's another approach to this topic.
Yeah.
I think that's the way people should handle it. I don't think you're going to get someone that has felt strongly one way to flip-flop 180 degrees the other way by attacking them in a one-sided arguing match. Like that isn't going to convince anybody.
I got family members, Jason, that are pro Democrat, but their families spent their careers in the mines. So they're basically, and the Democrats died when Kennedy died, sad to say.
Yeah, the political party means nothing anymore.
Yeah, it's
there's aspects of the Republicans.
I promised my wife I wouldn't get into politics, but here we are. But it's like you guys, they're dedicated to that D so much, and they don't want to change to that R. So stay an I, be in the middle then, at least here, but don't support what those people actually stand for, and not the party that's trying to destroy the retirement that you're taking a check from, the industry that got you your retirement and everything, and support your family for all these years.
Well, I think if you're grounded in, like your principles, right? And then you analyze policies totally irrespective of what party is presenting it. And you go, are my principles in line with these policies? Yeah. Like I would say I'm big on protecting blue collar workers. You should protect the working man. You should protect certain industries. Should be aware of what unique aspects that your natural resources present for your country, and then analyze the policies that come out like through that lens, right? And there were times historically where I would say I would heavily favor Democrats, Kennedy level Democrats, right? Like their approach to health, their approach to the intelligence agencies, their approach to a lot of things. Yeah. But time sways, right? And like that Republican Democrat, kind of like ticket. Trump's Republican approach is very different than, past warmongering, heavily corporate supporting, not supporting the working man. So it's more about like, know what you stand for, and then just analyze the policies that are being presented by our representatives through that lens, regardless of DRI, whatever. Yeah.
Well, it's like they don't want Trump to go talk to Putin. And it's like, what do you want to do? Be nuclear annihilated? And then We want to be here. I mean, it's again, what does it hurt to go talk to our enemies?
Especially if you're trying to resolve a problem,
A
right?
big
And that's, it's a big problem, right? Like a world
He's
ender.
got the balls to go do it,
You should go talk to
Yeah.
people. How are you going to resolve problems? Like you get in an argument with your wife, right? If both of you guys sit on opposite ends of the couch and you never talk,
Yeah.
what do you think that leads to? Eventually, you're just going to get divorced.
Yeah.
You're never going to resolve what might have been just a minor issue where you're like, what the hell are we even arguing about, right? Like sometimes my wife and I'm like, what are we mad at each other about again? Like this is stupid.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about this,
Yeah.
put this to bed, because I don't want to go to bed angry. That's the
Yeah.
last thing I ever want to do. I don't want to go to bed angry at anybody.
For sure.
Like I want to go to bed like grounded,
Yeah.
and then I can wake up the next day and like knock out a
Yeah.
good solid day. And yeah, at that level, at a world level, if you have a dispute with somebody, you got to talk.
Yeah.
You're never going to resolve
You
it.
have to.
I'm not saying that you capitulate,
Right.
but you got to at least have a conversation. So I commend them for talking.
too.
Regardless of how bad the hombre is.
Yeah.
If you got a problem, you still got to sit down and figure out, how do we rectify this?
Yeah.
How do both sides move forward?
Yeah.
So big hope for the Trump, his cabinet, ending the wars, pro energy. Let's get business going here. Let's stabilize the whole global environment. And I think everybody rises that way.
And Congress puts some of this shit into law, so the next guy can't go in and change everything that progress that's been made, like last Trump administration.
And I think there's, it's easy to blame representatives. It's easy to blame presidents, but at the end of the day, we elect them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to step up, right? You got to get involved.
Have a voice.
Correct. It's your right.
Yeah.
It's our right.
Yeah.
We are the ones that hold the sovereignty, not the government.
Funny story. So me and my dad I was complaining one time about, just politics in general. And he goes, "Did you vote?" And I said, "No."
Oh,
He goes, "Shut your damn mouth." He goes, you shouldn't have an opinion if you voted. And ever since then, I started voting. Yeah.
I have a similar story. So I'm sitting at dinner with my wife, my father-in-law, my sister-in-law, and her significant other. And it's pre-2016, right? And I think it's during the Republican primary.
Uh-huh.
And at the time, on the Democrat side, I liked Tulsi. I liked her. I thought, and then she just started getting attacked by the whole Clinton side.
Sure.
Yeah, I really didn't like that at all. But I was big on Tulsi. On the Republican side, he was like, "Who are you thinking?" I said, "Trump." And he goes, "Why?" I go, "Why not?" I like the fact that he was shaking it up. He was approaching it from a common sense business perspective, and really took a lot of pride in America and trying to get back to that golden age and rectifying mistakes that I think have been going on for decades. And then, the other two were like, "I'm not going to vote." And he goes, "Okay, fair enough." He goes, "But if you don't vote, I don't want to hear your opinion on taxes. I don't want to hear your opinion on road conditions." And he just goes through the list of things. He's like, "I don't want to hear you whining about any of this.
Right.
If you're not going to at least take the effort to educate yourself on the policies that our representatives are pitching."
Yeah.
Because if it turns out that you don't like it,
Yeah.
you're just on the sidelines, throwing stones. You're not involved.
Right.
Yeah. So who are you? Who are you to have an opinion?
Exactly.
Take that down the street. I don't want to hear it. So there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
All right, Matt. Well, hey,
All
I
right.
appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.